If you didn't see this movie opening night wearing this, or cosplaying as Thor like I saw someone do at my screening, then you are not a true fan. So, this is the big one. This is Avengers Age of Ultron. Was my most anticipated movie next to Star Wars, and I say was because I've already seen it. Star Wars is now my most anticipated movie, but let's talk about Age of Ultron. After the events of Captain America the Winter Soldier, the Avengers reassemble to take out a Hydra base in an Eastern European country called Sokovia. They find out that this particular Hydra leader, Baron von Strucker, has held on to the scepter, Loki's weapon from the first Avengers. The Avengers recapture it, and as Thor is about to take it back to Asgard, Tony Stark and Bruce Banner discover that there's some sort of artificial intelligence within the scepter. How they didn't detect that in the first movie when they had the scepter is something I can't answer. Anyway, Tony decides to use it to power his Ultron program, this peacekeeping force that he's been working on to pretty much guard the world so the Avengers don't have to do it. Unfortunately, Ultron becomes self-aware very quickly, starts learning about the human race and the Avengers, and comes to the conclusion that the only way peace will ever be maintained is if humanity and the Avengers are wiped from existence. So once again, it's up to the Avengers to save the world from this one foe that not one Avenger could take on their own. Now, the Avengers, the first one, was my favorite movie of 2012 and my favorite superhero movie out there. I just think it's brilliant all around. So you imagine that I am extremely anticipating this sequel, or was since I saw it. But at the same time, I was nervous because there could always be that thing where you get so excited, you build up so much hype for this movie that it doesn't live up to expectations. And luckily, Age of Ultron doesn't do that. Yeah, this is pretty much all I expected from an Avengers film. You got the spectacular action sequences, you got the great dialogue between characters, you got some great performances from your actors, and in ways it's a little better than the first Avengers, in some ways it's not. But what does this movie do that improves on the first Avengers? Well, Hawkeye, for one thing. When the first movie came out, I never imagined that Hawkeye would be that character that everyone would just shit on. Like, yeah, Hawkeye sucks. I was always behind Hawkeye's back, even when the first movie came out, because I knew that he may be a guy with just a bow and arrow, but he's so much more useful than a lot of people give him credit for. And in this movie, we really get an understanding of that. He even says that it's not logical for him to be around these super soldiers, these gods and monsters, when all he has is a bow and arrow. But he does it because it's his job, and we get a lot more character development from him. He's one of the standout parts of the movie. Now, in terms of the new characters, we got the villain, obviously, Ultron, voiced by James Spader, and I always thought James Spader was a perfect choice because he's got the voice that they obviously enhanced to sound more robotic. Ultron, I figured, would be a cold villain, like very calculating, cold, but he's actually kind of witty, and given that he's the brainchild of Tony Stark, that's not really anything to be surprised over. But I think James Spader does a great job bringing Ultron to life. The voice works. Ultron proves to be a really great villain with personality, and there are points where he's just pure evil. Like, he's, next to Loki, he's the best film villain that Marvel's created. Now let's talk about Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. Let's talk about Scarlet Witch first, because that was a character that I've been more curious about how they do. As someone who's never read the comics, the stuff I've read on Scarlet Witch seemed very fascinating, and Joss Whedon has said that he loves these two characters. And you can definitely see that, especially in Scarlet Witch. Elizabeth Olsen does a fantastic job. Scarlet Witch is a really good character on her own, very powerful. She's strong-willed, kind of independent, even though she and her brother are very close to each other. Joss Whedon seems to draw a lot of influence from his past projects when making these two characters. For example, there are parts with Scarlet Witch that remind me of Willow from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and even the relationship between the two characters reminds me of Simon and River from Firefly. Now let's talk about Quicksilver, because I know people are anxious about how does this one fare compared to the one we saw last year in X-Men Days of Future Past. Well, in my opinion, I like them both equally. The one in X-Men Days of Future Past, as much as we love that version, he was very much a plot device just to get Magneto out of the Pentagon, but he did have the best scene in the movie, admittedly, and was one of the best parts of the movie as a whole. This Quicksilver feels a lot more important. I think his power base is a lot cooler. The way he simulates running is cooler. And I also like the relationship that they showed between him and his sister, even though, honestly, he gets pushed to the side. Out of all the Avengers characters, he's the one that just kind of gets pushed to the sideline, and not a lot of focus is on him. He doesn't get that much time to shine. Now let's talk about the stuff that this movie didn't do as well as the first Avengers. So, first of all, the movie's 2.5 hours long, and so was the first movie. Both of which did a really good job of making you not feel the length at all. Like when I walked out of this movie and the first Avengers, I was like, really, that was 2.5 hours long? It didn't feel like that at all. Which I think is good that a movie can be that long, yet you never feel the length. Unfortunately for Age of Ultron, there are a few moments that feel rushed, particularly with the creation of Ultron and when Thor has to leave the team for a while. I watched those scenes and was like, there's something missing. Feels like there was some stuff cut out. And supposedly there was. Joss Whedon's original cut for Age of Ultron was 3 hours long, and I even heard from some sources that it might have been 3.5. Now, would I have stayed to watch a 3-hour plus Avengers film? Probably, given the fact that you don't feel the 2.5 hour length for either movie. I probably could have sat down and watched a 3-hour plus Avengers film. And I've heard rumors about an extended cut being released on Blu-ray, and I'd be curious to see that. Don't put those scenes aside in the bonus features, just I want to see them part of the movie if the original cut was that long. But despite those issues, Age of Ultron is a really well-made movie. The characters are awesome. All the actors do a great job. Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans, Mark Ruffalo, Scarlett Johansson, Jeremy Renner. The list goes on. It has a great villain. The action scenes are spectacular. And yeah, I would be lying if I didn't say get off your ass and go see this movie right now. Go see it in the theater, because the theater is the way these Marvel movies are meant to be seen. But you could skip the 3D. But now, is this movie better than the first Avengers? In my opinion, no. Despite some improvements from the first movie, the Avengers wins because there was that magic of seeing these characters get together for the first time ever, and it couldn't be recaptured with this movie because it's the sequel. I don't think it'll be recaptured once Infinity War comes out, though I'm curious if it'll be recaptured when Spider-Man makes his appearance, but we'll see what happens. That's the deciding factor, is that the magic of seeing these characters together for the first time is lost in this movie, so that's why I prefer the first Avengers to this one, but this one's still pretty damn good regardless. And that's my review for Avengers, Age of Ultron. Leave a comment and tell me what you thought of the movie. If you've seen it, what did you think? Like, subscribe, and this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.